Welcome to the Veterinary Marketing Podcast, where it's all about helping your veterinary practice attract, engage, and retain clients. Broadcasting a new podcast every Monday from sunny Southern California, here's your host, Brandon Bashirs.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to episode number 196 of the Veterinary Marketing Podcast. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about social selling, how to sell while increasing your top of funnel awareness and also increase demand for your products and services without coming off like a sleazy salesperson. I think this is incredibly important for right now because, number one, this is a time when there is, and if you're listening to this in the future, we are in the heat of the coronavirus outbreak. This is a time when people are consuming content like crazy. Think about your own personal content consumption. You're probably out there looking for all kinds of information. You're also looking for distraction. And so probably Netflix, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime, Facebook, Instagram, all of these platforms are seeing massive increases in traffic. Listen, before we begin, I just want to mention a few things. This is going to be a great episode, first of all, for your practice. But if you haven't done so already, be sure to jump on over to the Facebook group, the Veterinary Marketing Nerds. I think it's extremely important that if you have questions, that you get your questions answered. I'm happy to help. Whatever you need, please let me know. I would love to help you create a plan for your practice. I actually have a link inside of the Facebook group that you can chat with me. Ask questions. It's completely free. So if you need help, please let me know. I would love to help you. I'm helping tons of practices. People come and say, Brandon, what should I be doing right now? And it is a perfectly legitimate question because there's so much uncertainty. I have some really good news, though. A lot of the practices that I'm working with, they are seeing a tremendous uptick in clients. I've had, I think, 4 or 5 practices say that they've had their single best revenue day ever this week. And it's crazy out there. So I know that things are crazy. If you're looking for a little bit of certainty, if you're looking for just some help, you want to get some marketing ideas. I know that sometimes my brain gets clogged up with just all of the things that are going on right now. So if you need help, please don't hesitate to reach out. Please reach out to me, and I would love to help you. Okay, let's jump back into today's episode. So there is an unprecedented event happening right now, which is people are going to be online at the same time more than ever in the history of the world. It's crazy. Just the way that things are happening are unprecedented. And so, I mean, it's just, there's so many examples right now. It's hard to think about, just all the things that are going on. So, what should you be doing? What are the things that you need to be working on in your practice? Number one, you need to make sure that you have your services laid out in terms of urgency and focus on those urgent, necessary items. Talked about this in depth last week. Very, very important that you go through that episode and you listen to it because I think it's going to have a real impact for you. The next thing that I think is very important is that you have to realize that right now people are conserving resources. They don't know if they're going to have toilet paper next week. So you can't necessarily expect that they're going to go out and just buy stuff. You're probably conserving resources too. You don't know what's going to happen. And so we have to get into the minds of the consumers. I do believe 100% that we're going to get out of this. And once we do get out of this, we're going to be looking to those companies that supported us, the companies that gave us useful information, the companies that treated their employees right, the companies that took precautions to help make this go away as quickly as possible. And I've been seeing such great responses from people in the veterinary industry as what they're doing when they're doing their social distancing, they're doing curbside check-in, they're doing telemedicine, they're doing all these things that are really, really helpful. So the content that you're producing is going to help to expand and increase the recovery that happens once everything starts to go back to normal, if that makes sense. So let's talk about this in a little bit greater detail. So number one, we need to realize, again, the mindset of the clients right now. We're looking for essential items, but at the same time, we're looking for lots of information. So this means that we need to have 2 focuses when it comes to content, when it comes to your practice. You need to have that urgency. I need this stuff right now type messaging. You need to have funnels set up for that and went in depth on that last week. Real quick here, just to recap though, that's the things like same day services, emergency services, things like that. The second thing is top of funnel content. You need to build awareness. So just be putting out content. People are consuming content like crazy. Now there is more content than ever, so you need to stand out and stick out from the rest. So how do you do that? I think number one, you need to be informational. You need to be extremely helpful. If you can give tools, resources, help that is going to take people from A to B with the problem. If you take them from A to B, you can take them from A to Z, is what a saying that I recently heard that I love. And it's totally true. If you can get some simple problem solved, especially if it's related to coronavirus or shortages on food or just like anything, you can really help them to build and establish trust with you. But understand that people are looking for information. So create and publish information, especially if this gets slow times. And right now we're just seeing really busy practices, which is great. But if it does slow down, which it very well may, you need to be prepared, and you need to have, now you have time to make all that content that you've been wanting to make and do all those marketing initiatives you've been wanting to do. So focus in on top of funnel content. Right now, I think, again, you need to do those urgency bottom of funnel and then the high level top of funnel type of content. That's just going to build awareness. Remember, we go awareness, evaluation, and then conversion in a funnel. So knowing that we have more potential for attention than ever before, I think it's really wise that if you maybe even just focus in on, I would say 3 or 4 topics to help you appear to be more specialized. When I think about the veterinarians that I see creating content that I love engaging with, they're specializing in something. And I know that specializing, you're not allowed to say you're a specialist unless you're boarded, and there's all kinds of rules with that. But you can create content that lets you get in depth on all kinds of cool things. Like when I think about content out there, do you love working on rabbits or goats or turtles or doing specific procedures? Do you love dentistry? Do you love, TPLO surgery or rehab or pain management? Or like, what is it that really gets you excited and the kinds of things that you love doing? And create content around that. When I think about turtles, I mentioned turtles because I think about Dr. Michael Miller from Harry Potter Vet. He's got great content, but he talks about turtles, and not too many people do that. And so if I had a problem with my turtle, I'd go to him because I know that he would have the answer for it. So that's just one example, but think about 4 or 5 topics that you can do in addition to the COVID-19 stuff, because I think that is very, very important. It's very relevant. And so that will help you to create specialization and get out in front of more practices. In front of more clients, not practices. So if we're thinking about content, there is a very specific way that I think you can create content that doesn't feel sleazy or slimy, where you are helping people to want your product. Now, right now, we are in a time, again, where people are not necessarily in the buying mood, but it's called seeding or embedding. You're going to put that idea into their heads that this is something that we offer. This is something that you need. Especially if you're creating content around products or services where it is not necessarily something that people think is a necessity, but it is. So like, for example, let's talk about heartworm treatment. Right now, people are stuck inside. They're not going outside. What would you, be thinking about people saying, we don't need heartworm. We're not going outside. So let's talk about how can you go and make this in a way to educate people while also helping them to know that they should buy this. I think the best way to do this is by embedding a story into what you're talking about. So when you're going through here, the way that you can do this, especially if it's like something as serious as heartworm, where you've probably had cases that were tragic and that you want to avoid happening again. If you say, this is something, I'll tell you a story really quick. I had a client who, this is what happened to them. They came in, they said, we don't need this. 2 weeks later, they came back, and this was the case. It didn't have to be the case. If you're telling stories that not only help people to understand the outcome that you're trying to get them to, but at the same time, you can provide value through that story. I'm not saying that all of your stories should be like, just terrifying. This happened, they didn't take my advice, and they ended up. There needs to be some kind of value in there as well. Let me give you a perfect example, okay? Let's say that I am talking about AdWords, for example, and I say, listen, let me tell you a story about AdWords. We're going to be talking today about match types. And, I have one of my clients who I work with, they were doing the best that they could because they were following Google's outlines. And now Google will tell you to add keywords to get more impressions. And that makes sense because you want to get more impressions. But what ended up happening was that they were adding so many broad match keywords that they were unknowingly bidding for the post office. People searching for the post office in their town because they added their town as a broad match and they had no idea. They were following the rules by Google, but what ended up happening was they were wasting a ton of money on ad spend. That story that I just told there, if I was trying to sell you Google AdWords stuff, I would say this is an effective way that you're following what you think are the right rules based on what you've learned. It's not your fault. This is what Google tells you to do, but here's what the reality is. So stories help to get people in a mindset like, oh, I should be looking for these solutions. And it's not in a way that is actually selling people. I think when people start to feel sold, they put up a wall and they become skeptical. But when they're being educated, they're like a sponge. And so as long as the stories that you are telling are educating and helping to serve a purpose in terms of what you're teaching, then by the end, when you get to the point where you need to sell or you need to say, so come on in to our practice, that's the only little transition that you have to make. I'll give you an even better transition that you can make when you're done selling. So when you're done educating so that it doesn't seem like you're selling, is what I meant to say. So once you get through educating, and again, people are so much more receptive when you're educating. If you can think about, when you are at a lecture or you're at a workshop and you're taking notes, if people are telling stories that are relevant to that, you're going to be taking notes on the stories that they're telling. And then once you just get to the end, if you can change your tune just a little bit by saying, and clients ask me all the time, hey, Dr. So-and-so, or hey, Brandon, do you do AdWords? And the answer to that is yes, I do AdWords. And if you would like more information, here's how you get that. That's a really simple transition. You've already pre-sold with testimonials in the front of your education. People have absorbed that information instead of repelling it because they're skeptical, and it helps you to get a lot further with the clients. So think about this as you're creating more top of funnel awareness content and you're building more engagement with your audience and your potential audience, even if they're not ready to buy now because the economy's rough and they don't necessarily want certain services. If you can start seeding these ideas in there, building out an audience, building retargeting audiences that you can then use to propel yourself faster out of everything as we come into recovery here. Because I believe this is going to be a recovery, and I hope that you do too, because if you don't think it's going to get better, that's going to be I think a sad mindset to have. So understand it's going to be difficult. This is going to definitely be a difficult time, but there's so much opportunity. If you are interested in building out an audience right now, I think that this is the best time to do that, which is great. So got to look for the bright side on things. I know that it's really, really scary. If you need help with anything, please don't hesitate to reach out. I know this was kind of a shorter and to the point episode, but I just wanted to let you know that I'm here for you. If you need help, please don't hesitate to reach out. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you on next week's episode. Have a good one, everyone.